The Venture Center team is very happy to welcome you and host you for this in-person certificate course, Advanced Workshop in Technology Transfer. This initiative is supported under the FLCTD, that is a Facility for Low Carbon Technology Deployment Project, funded by the government Global Environmental Facility, and it is implemented by the UNIDO in collaboration with the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, that is BEE, Government of India. We have participation in this course, as you can see, from academia, government R&D labs and various innovation support agencies, and we welcome you all. We are very happy to welcome our international experts, Dr. Ashley Stevens, Dr. Richard Cahoon and Mr. John Fraser. Let me take this opportunity to point out the organizing team members from Venture Center. We will be your go-to people for the coming 2 days. My name is Dr. Kavita Parekh, and I will be, along with my colleague Vedang. So we will be your go-to people for the next 2 days, and of course beyond that, as and when required. You have interacted with most of us during the coordination phase. We have been pestering you for your CVs and your travel plans and everything, and we are very happy to host you here in person. I will now invite Dr. Premnath, Director of Venture Center, for his very brief welcome address, and he will talk a little bit about the FLCTD program. Let me quickly introduce him before that. So Dr. Premnath is the Director of Venture Center and Head NCL Innovations. He is a leader in technology transfer, IP commercialization and venture creation. Most of you already know him. He has shaped national policies and established award-winning innovation management initiatives, fostering commercialization, startups and deep tech incubation across India through CSR, NCL and Venture Center. Welcome, sir.
Do I need to use a mic?
If you want to.
No, for your purposes I will. Yes, okay. First of all, well, switch it on. Well, welcome everybody to Venture Center. How many of you are here for the first time?
I don't think you need a mic, sir.
I thought for the benefit of him. You're okay? Aapne on kiya?
Yeah, I couldn't get it to really produce a sound. Like, can you turn up the volume?
Yes.
Do you sit here? Or do you want to use this?
Just try it. Not a problem. Probably it should be okay. Is it working? Yes. This is the other way around also. Let's see.
Say what is it?
I think there are a lot of familiar faces, so I can see at least a few that I recognize. Good. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, first of all, welcome to Venture Center. I think some of you, it is the first time you're coming here, so I'm happy that you have come here, and hopefully our colleagues will take good care of you. This is a shorter version of the Techtransfer program, specifically meant for busy people like you who could not take out the time for the 5-day program. But jokes aside, it's also meant to be a little where there's more time for conversation. So I hope you will make the most of it and also connect with each other and build on it as well. So I just wanted to first just tell you a little bit that I'm sure you've heard all the administrative announcements and so on. My colleagues here will try and make it as interesting and useful for you. But most importantly, we have the benefit of having Ashley, Dick and John here, and their experiences are invaluable. and also you should connect with them personally for your own institutions as well. As you go along, you should build on that relationship as well. This is the opportunity to make that happen. That also means that please make use of not only the sessions here, but the lunch and all of those breaks. That's where you really can talk a lot more freely, right? So please do that as well. Besides that, there is an ongoing workshop in the 5-day program which is also running. There are other tech transfer colleagues also here, so you might meet them during lunchtime. So if you bump into them, introduce yourself. I can tell you that just like other business activities, one of the most important activities in business is networking, right? It's incredible the kind of linkages that you can build and how you can use them to the advantage of what you do in your profession. And that starts with many of the colleagues which are in the profession, but and leveraging their networks as well. So for example, if Pune has quite a hub for automotive engineering, but also for certain parts of biotech and biopharma and so on and so forth. If you want to leverage those networks, you should be talking to people who might be here as well. We have folks from NCL, I think the chemical materials and though that industry as well, you can tap those networks as well. Unfortunately what's happened is due to some issues, Nitesh and Sandeep Tandon will hopefully end up coming a little later today or tomorrow. They've had some issues in being able to fly in during the weekend. They were supposed to come on Sunday and Monday, and there were some issues due to which they couldn't do it. So when they come, they can join in, but in the meantime let me just give you a quick overview of what's happening. So basically there's a program called the Facility for Low Carbon Technology Deployment, and so it's FLCTD. This is a program run by UNIDO with BEE, which is Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and an arm which is a funding arm called the GEF, and these three together are essentially running this program. And under this they are looking at low carbon technologies, and in low carbon technologies they have various components of that activity. They've been looking at how to support innovations. So they have previously run an accelerator program, an innovation challenge, and done quite a lot of support for some of these startups as well. And when they were doing this, one of the realizations was that although the funding program was open to academic and research organizations, very few of the candidates and success stories were from research and academic institutions. And you would assume that if all the funding, research funding, as you know, 70% of our research funding in India from the government goes to publicly funded research institutions, you should have a lot more pipeline from those organizations for some of these kind of domains, right? So it's in that context that they have been exploring how to strengthen the technology transfer ecosystem in India. They'll talk, hopefully they'll get a chance to talk a little bit more, so I'll just briefly mention it here. Under that, they have done a survey of various organizations. How many of you were involved in that survey which the UNIDO group did? I think NCL was there, IIT Madras, you were also involved? Okay, ISER also, okay. So good, so there are quite a few who were involved in it. And their idea was to try and understand what are the issues that people are facing in really making all of these things happen. And that's the context in which this survey, by the way, there's a report which is available on their website, many of you might be aware of it, and that report is essentially documents many things. Out of them, one important thing is building tech transfer capabilities and training people in tech transfer. So that is what this is, capability building program. And under this, as Venture Center, we are trying to do a few things. We are partnering them on this. The first thing we are doing is a set of training programs. There was a very successful series of 5 webinars which we ran. I don't know how many of you got a chance to attend that. Did anybody attend the webinars? Okay, so we have some, good. So that there's a 5 days of webinars where we covered some of the basic elements for most people who are interested in tech transfer the activities itself. There were about I think 170, 180 people participating in it every day. I think we issued out about 140 certificates at the end. So those people actually did all the exercises, quizzes that they were assigned in those programs as well. So that was the precursor that happened in April, and now right now we are doing the 5-day program, and this 2-day program was actually our own initiative. It is not something which UNIDO wanted us necessarily to do, but we thought that some of you, if you're finding 5 days too long, you should participate in the 2-day one at least. We want you to benefit from meeting our 3 experts here primarily, and a few others who are assembled here as well, and get the benefit of what we are trying to do here. Also, there's another goal, which is that we are going to also do manual and also a tech transfer handbook. But beyond that, there's also this issue of building a small community. There is a association called STEM Global, which of tech transfer professionals, as all of you are aware. They're doing a great job, but sometimes I don't see many practicing people over there from I don't know how many of you have attended the STEM Global programs. Yeah, so we have few, right? So I think I wanted to also see if there are forums where you can share a few pointers here and there, and also some more networks. So we will essentially try to also complement what STEM Global is doing, not necessarily compete with it, but as a community, so we are trying to also build that community out a little bit as well. And that also has actually, over time, you will see that we will add some useful content and discussions emerging from there. Autumn has a good discussion group, which I think Ashley probably came during your time or before you, the discussion group that you had, online discussion group.
I think it came
after. Yeah, and the directors group especially, I find having a lot of useful information coming from time to time. I've learned from some of the links that I get or some of the models, and I think those kind of things we should share as well. I think I've spoken a lot, so now back to Kavita, who will take us through. She will be the person who will keep us all disciplined, hopefully, and keep us on time for this particular workshop, right? So Dr. Kavita Parekh will take it ahead. Yeah.
So a little bit about the workshop and some administrative announcements. So for today's course, about the course, we will be having the course for 2 days over around 12 hours. As you know, it's an in-person certificate course, and the course features lectures, case studies, perspectives, discussions and experience sharing, which I'm sure you all will benefit with all our international experts here, and a lot of networking sessions. We will be requesting you for feedback, which will be useful for us to improve the course as well as to prepare the handbook. How you can maximize learning from this course. 100% attendance is of course compulsory. We can listen, interact and discuss and network and discuss our collaborations. The slides will be available after the course via restricted area, and recordings will also be available later on, and the handbook, which Dr. Premnath has mentioned, will be posted to you somewhere in the month of September. About the course, some very small administrative announcements. There are water bottles in the jute bags which have been given to you all. We do not want to use too much of plastic, so we request you to fill up your water bottles at the water coolers which are outside. Refreshments will be served throughout the day. We will be having lunch in our Open Innovation Cafe, and we have planned tomorrow especially a very special Maharashtrian lunch for you all. Even today you will see a lot of Maharashtrian items in the menu. I will point it out to you. In the morning you have had our famous bakarwadi, which was outside, and the washrooms are just outside this area, and we will have a group photograph in the afternoon depending on the rain conditions. For the certificates, we request the forms, the registration forms which we have signed. Please check your name and your second name, because they will be the ones which will be used on the certificates. And of course we will have restricted areas for the slides exercises. We will try to give you all a tour either today or tomorrow depending on the rain conditions. So before we deep dive, I will talk a little bit about Venture Center and TechX. Venture Center, as you all know, is India's leading inventive enterprise incubator. We are award-winning not-for-profit incubator with a focus on inventive enterprises, science-based businesses, and deep tech startups. We are 18 years old and we have worked with 900 plus startup teams, including 200 resident startups. We have raised funds more than 100 million in the last 8 years, with proud to say that we have launched more than 220 products and filed for more than 180 plus unique patent families. So we make available rich and inclusive innovation ecosystems comprising of funding options, a mentor pool which we are very proud of, peer networks, information and learning opportunities, R&D facilities which we will show you all during our tour, digital and physical prototyping capabilities, advanced analysis testing support, IP and tech transfer, regulatory support, and our networks. Our mission is to assist, Venture Center hosts a RTTO, that is techx.in, and our mission is to assist academia, government R&D labs, startups, industry and individual innovators to improve their innovation coefficient and performance. For tech developers, we have policies, institutional processes, awareness, training, IP protection, tech marketing, showcases, valuations, deal making, spin-outs. And for technology seekers, we have scouting for technology and R&D partners, decision support, and in licensing. So I work for the technology transfer office here at Venture Center. If any one of you is interested in knowing more about us, do visit our website, or over the 2 days I can talk to you all about any of these topics. So do visit our websites. So before we now go to our next session, so this will be the session outline for today. We of course we have the inaugural session. After that, we will have a session on policies, organizational structure and institutional processes by our 3 experts, John Fraser, Ashley Stevens and Richard Cahoon. In the afternoon post lunch, we have a session on technology and IP licensing. The third session will be TTO relationships with inventors, founders, funders and industry. I think someone in the group mentioned that I think you mentioned that you want to build up on this, so hopefully this session will be useful, and then we will end with a high tea session. We are trying today to have it along with the other group, so it will be a good networking opportunity for both the groups also. And before I invite our speakers, we'll just have a for this session on policies, organization structure and institutional processes, I will just introduce them. So John Fraser is a global expert in technology transfer and knowledge exchange. He has extensive experience in maximizing innovation impact. He has led 4 technology transfer offices across 2 countries and understands the complexities of translating research into market-ready products. As a former Autumn president, he has advised global technology transfer professionals, and through Burnside Development, he consults the WIPO, the Chilean institution, Serbia's Innovation Foundation, and India's Department of Biotechnology. So he has been the past president of Association of University Technology Managers in US, and president, like I said, for Burnside Development and Associates, and he heads a technology transfer for Florida State University and Simon Fraser University. He used to, yes, previously. So welcome. Ashley Stevens. Dr. Stevens is a biotech entrepreneur and technology commercialization expert. He has co-founded GenMap and Kytogenetics, Genics, bringing academic innovations to the market. He later led the technology transfer at the Dana-Farber Cancer Center and Boston University, where he has launched 55 startups. His affiliations: he has been the past president for Autumn. He has headed the technology transfer group at Boston University, and he was president for Focus IP Group LLC. Richard Cahoon is an adjunct professor at Cornell University. He specializes in tech transfer, IP management, and commercialization With over 30 years of experience, he has advised governments, universities, and global organizations on innovation ecosystems, IP strategy and venture creation, and technology driven economic development in over 25 countries. His affiliations, has been past Association of Autumn Board of Directors, President Bioproperty Strategy Group, and he has headed the Technology Transfer Group at Cornell University. So, very warm welcome to our speakers, and with that, I will hand over to John and Ashley Stevens. Would you like to sit here? Or you can sit wherever, and I can just point the whatever is coming. Shall I change your slides for you?
No. Show the clicker.
You can sit.
Something, do you have a slide changer? You have not put it here. Can we get it?
Okay. Thank you, Ashley. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good, thank you. A couple of things. I wear a cap. I'm bald. I stand under air conditioning ducts. My head gets cold and I start sneezing uncontrollably. I've had this happen here in India a number of years ago, so I wear a cap. The three of us have probably 100 years of experience, okay? But it's largely American-based, and we're not here to pontificate how to do it the American way. We're here to tell you about lessons we've learned that I hope will be of some use to you, okay? I'm going to ask Ashley in a second to talk about something that each of you who heads offices is familiar with, and that is how to figure out how to work with a faculty member. There's a key aspect here. And just 1 second. I'm going to answer the question, relationships with companies, okay? The answer is this. You sit down, you meet people, you negotiate. 6 months later, reports due. You follow up, and 2 of the 3 people you've met have moved on and they're not there anymore. Or you phone up, and the entire unit has been sold because the company has changed its focus. So my answer to the question is, it's like a marriage. You need to keep in touch base and find out, because one day your interests are going to diverge and there's no point to the relationship anymore. So keep in touch and just find out what's going on, because things change dramatically. Ashley did a study that showed that the time that a director stays in the director position at an American office is something like 7 years, okay? If you're lucky. So there's change everywhere. So keep in touch. My answer to the question. Ashley, would you comment, please, about how to work with researchers?
Yeah, so we were talking on the car on the way here about you get an invention disclosure from a professor, a researcher, the first time. You've never met them before. So obviously, the first thing you're going to do is go and meet them. And I was talking about a professor in BU's School of Public Health who reached out to me with an invention disclosure. And it was about a website. Now, that doesn't sound particularly unusual, but this was in the late 1990s, and this was about quitting smoking, a smoking cessation website. And as you know, there are products you can get to help you quit smoking. There is a chewing gum. There is a patch you can wear. And there was data that showed from public health studies that if you had social support in your attempt to quit smoking with either the gum or the patch, your prospects of success were greatly enhanced. And this professor, Richard Rosenblum, had done this research and published it, and had leapt upon the fact, and he was doing this in 1992 and 1993. And 1993, I think, was it March of 1993, was when Mosaic 3.0 browser became available from the National Supercomputing Applications Laboratory at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And Mosaic 3.0 was the first web browser that could portray and present graphics. So it was the browser that launched the internet, essentially. And Richard had seen this, had jumped on it, and had said, hey, now I can scale. You know, social support isn't just going to be how many people can I sit around a table in a church basement in a addiction therapy group, but now I can scale it indefinitely. It was very far-sighted. And he'd done this as an academic enterprise, and he'd grown it, and he'd reached the limits of his ability to raise not-for-profit funding, government grants and things like that, to support this activity. And so his idea was to take it commercial to allow him to raise more money to help more people. And so I get this phone call from him. I've got the invention disclosure following a phone call. And so the first thing I do is go to meet him. Well, the address he gave me was very interesting. It was in the Back Bay area of Boston, near the Boston Public Library, nowhere near our School of Public Health. That was interesting. And I walk in, and the first thing you do when you meet a new professor or researcher for the first time is you have to assess them. Are they serious? Are they real? Do they want to do this for the right reason? And I told John and Dick, it took me somewhere between probably 30 and 60 seconds to realize that this was one of the most serious guys I'd ever met. And I was going to do whatever he wanted to get this done. And we got it done, and the company was successful, and it grew. And about 3 or 4 years later, I had to get involved again because they were being bought. And the seed round financing, there were some issues with some warrants issued to one of the investors, and this was holding up the sale of the company. So I had to get involved and take some decisions, and make some concessions to get the thing done. In fact, my boss told me afterwards that I'd been far too generous, but that was what it took to get it done. So your first job is to really assess the inventor. How serious are they? How committed are they? How much will you be able to rely on them to give you what you need when you need it?
Thank you, Ashley. The point of my asking Ashley was to tell you, you may have a couple of staff members who filed lots of patents, may do a lot of deals, okay? But the real issue is the relationship with the individual. I've been in the game, my first deal was in 1980. I have found half a dozen people that I would go through hell to help them do the deal. Why? Because they were committed, they were passionate, the project was important. And I'll tell you examples about it. So I wanted to express to you the fact that this is all people to people. Now we're going to talk about policies and procedures and all that good stuff, that makes the relationships an engine, a system that allows you to crank up the volume. But the real key is understanding and assessing the people early on. Are these the people that are going to continue to drive things when you run into real problems, whether they be internal bureaucratic or external? Okay, having made my point, let's go to the slides. Great, that's what I'm going to talk about. Pull the whole thing up, please. Yeah. Okay. Obviously, you need to have some policies in place. Okay? So you can make decisions quickly. And the policies range all the way from the IP policy to what I mentioned to the other group. The University of Wisconsin, who had been licensing for 100 years, okay, went to the president of the university and said, sign this letter to all employees. The president went to the trustees, the letter went out and said to employees, we, the senior leadership, are telling you, the employees, that engagement with spin-out companies and licensing is academically acceptable, period. That was a huge statement, because otherwise you're in the office, you're working away, you're doing the job, and you're ignored. This was an institution that decided it's important to raise the profile of the activity and encourage faculty to engage in this, knowing that probably only 10% of the faculty are going to be interested over a long time. But it was an important aspect of the policy. Okay, here's the environment. Okay, next slide. All right. You need a policy. Okay, fine. You need to sort out who owns what. Okay, great. Is there many offices have advisory boards that help you not to look over your shoulder to make sure you're doing your job, but rather help you reach out and network with companies that might be interested. Build a mechanism to help you identify target companies. Is there a goal for the tech transfer office? I tell people, yes. The mission of your tech transfer office should be to help the institution reach its mission, period. Not to make money, not to do deals, but to help the institution achieve what it wants to achieve. And that usually means working with the private sector to build a research base.
And I'm going to talk about these different potential models at the end.
Yep. Okay, revenue generation. You all know it's a crapshoot. You have no control over it. The technology, we had the Taxol technology. It was a manufacturing technology for an anti-cancer drug. The drug became a $1 billion drug. Our royalties were $350 million. We licensed the process to Bristol Myers Squibb. It didn't scale. It didn't work. So you never know. Turned out, Professor Holton had another technology that we replaced and did some more negotiations, and boom, it worked. And we were all very happy later on. But revenue generating? You never know. Okay, technology for the public good. We did a lot of that at Florida State University. We didn't have a medical school to start with. The engineering school was not research driven. Those are the two sources in America of most disclosures. Economic development via startups. Yes. Many American universities do not have a policy with respect to startups written down on paper. Okay? There's a procedure, and I'll at some point tell you about how to use it. Next, please. Okay, we're not going to touch this subject, okay? In America, the Bayh-Dole Act said you can sell your technology if you want to, but you have to ask permission of the government agency that financed the work. What does that mean? Government has to make a decision. You mention this to a company as a case of, oh yeah, I don't want it. I'm not going to wait around for that decision to be made. That's the background to the non-assignment clause in America. Okay? I worked in Canada. There's no such thing. The venture capitalists back in the 80s wanted assignments, okay, because it was a hard asset. So I was at the University of Calgary where the professor owned, not the institution. So they were willing to sell it. The way we handle it was, yes, we will sell it to you, we will assign it to you, but only after certain things happen. Okay? You have the product in the marketplace, you need to raise more money. Okay, fine. That's a good milestone. So conditional assignments worked in Canada. Okay? If you sell it outright, it's gone. That might be okay. So we went halfway. Are startups encouraged? In America, currently, roughly 20% of the licenses signed across the country in America every year are to startups. And it grows a little bit, probably increase. Okay? The multinational licenses, 33%. The SME licenses, remainder. Okay? So licenses to small companies, 2/3 in the United States. Okay? In the United Kingdom, they decided back in 2005, we don't have the industrial base to do a lot of licensing. So we are going to take a policy amongst ourselves, and they convinced Parliament, we're going to do startups as what we're going to concentrate on, because we're trying to capture as much of the economic development in the country. Next. Okay. What this means is you got a place in the organization and your goal is to help the larger institution achieve its goals. Period. End of discussion. This is all detail. All right? Keep that in mind when you're worried about, are we doing the right thing? Because the time frame of most of our institutions isn't tomorrow, isn't the next quarter, it isn't profitability at the end of the year. It's a decade, 2 decades in the future, contributing to the economy of the country. Okay, next. Okay. There's a whole bunch of ways of how offices get financed normally. We had the Taxol deal. $350 million came in, of which 60% came to the institution. Did any of that come into my office? No, none of it. Absolutely zero. So every year I got down on bended knee and asked the vice president for money to run the shop. Initially, he took the money out of the Taxol deal because it was there. And when I told him the royalties went up and then went down to zero, he said, your service office is so important, I'm going to finance you like the rest of the Office of Research from the overheads collected on research grants. So there's a stability there for the longer term. Some offices receive a piece, maybe 15% of royalty income. Okay? But again, income is up and down, and so it's not as stable as it might be. The 1/3, 1/3, yes. Okay, next. Oh, I'm sorry, go back. Break even, self-sustainability of the office, forget it. Absolutely forget it. We had a conversation at Florida State, and the issue was, okay, when are you going to become self-sufficient? I said, when the university makes money from teaching. Well, we don't make money from teaching. Oh, well, why are you asking me that question? Well, because you work in the private sector. Well, we then had a further conversation. And all of a sudden, okay, this is a service the same as teaching. It's a service like doing research. Maybe some of it will be interesting beyond the publication. So having that argument, the conversation, really comes back to, we're here to help you achieve what you as an institution want to achieve. And that takes government financing, the kids paying tuition, but expecting us to contribute financially year after year after year and be self-sustaining isn't going to work. Because if you force that on us, I'm going to ask for upfront money on every deal, and I'm going to give up the future potential. Do you want to do that? The example was the Taxol deal. Okay? I could get a pile of money up front, but we would miss a lot of money. So the answer became, okay, we understand this. So don't squeeze every deal for as much as you can possibly get up front. Take a little bit up front, take a decent royalty, and then wait and see what happens. Because if the market changes, your product disappears. Nobody wants it. You don't know that when you start. So be very careful.
In the valuation segment tomorrow.
Okay. Next.
I would just say to what John just said here is that I don't think every deal should be driven by revenue. No, at all. And we'll talk about that later. But I disagree with John. I stated this. I think with a 1/3 share and some budget support and good triage, which is you evaluate your technologies and you select the ones that have viability and you have a reasonable flow, I think break even is likely. It's at least a goal. Now, being a revenue generator to produce a lot of money for the institution, probably not. But what is likely, I think, is break even.
Okay.
And I disagree with Dick.
All right. Hold it. I'm here. This is my stage at the moment. The issue is, that all sounds great. You get a new vice president, a new boss who has a totally different attitude, and the world changes. So you got to keep your options open. All right, next. I think we're near the finish here. In America, we invest in a patent up front, and I made real sure that people who looked at my budget did not look at the patent budget as part of my costs. The patent budget was an investment by the institution for the future, building an inventory. It wasn't a day-to-day running the program. People understood this. And so we selected a budget. It was relatively decent, okay? But I made real sure it wasn't part of the operating seen as part of the operating expenses. This is all about communication. I mean, I've been married 54 years, okay? And there's certain issues that I'm not going to win. There's certain issues where you need to frame the problem so we both come out winning, all right? And make a decision and move on. There's a lot of that, relationships building and running the tech transfer office and dealing with the private sector. Okay, we try and get licensees to make a decision about where to file beyond the country where we live. We've had 40 years of fights, and finally people are, okay, fine, that's the way deals are done in America. Okay, we'll do it. But I say, where do you want to file the patent outside America? And I listen very carefully, okay? Because I'll say, okay, pay for it. And then I'll show them the narrative of the patent, the narrative of the claims to make sure the claims cover what they want when they get in the marketplace. Then I take all that to my patent attorney and say, are they crippling our scope in any way? Most of the time, the answer is no. That's what they want to do. Let's do it that way. All right, I think one more. Huh? Is that it?
I think, hold on.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of diplomacy here. I was hired to run a tech transfer office at the National Research Council of Canada, and my boss said to me, "Do you know why I hired you, John?" No. Well, we had a lot of candidates with good degrees and a little bit of experience, but you were the only one that ran a beauty contest in the science faculty of your undergraduate school. I said, yeah, okay. You managed a bunch of flitty egos. That's what we do when we deal with academics. You've had that experience. And I thought, whoa, here's a practical-minded person. And it turned out, yeah, that's right. I had once the boss, one of my bosses, wanted to get involved in the negotiation. I said, okay. I picked up the phone. I said, here. You touch that phone, I'm going to assign this to you. So when we run into trouble, that's going to come back on your desk and you're going to handle it. I obviously had a decent relationship so we could talk about this in a very frank manner. And finally it was, you're right. Go do your thing. Come to me only if you need something resolved or you need support. Next. That's it, I think. Oh, Lord. Oh, yeah. You're going to run into trouble. One of my bosses called me a failed academic. Okay? Derogatory term. So there are going to be questions about the budget, going to be questions about why do we do this sort of thing. So you need proponents and champions on the academic side who will come and say, no, this is worth doing because it's creative work for the long term. We need to do this. And as Dick has said, you need to do a decent deal, not a perfect deal. Lita Nielsen has said, the point of doing a deal is to get it into the hands of the company and hope something good happens. Because once they have it, they deal with the market that you have no idea about, no pace or anything else. So it's a case of do a deal that's fairly standard, people are fairly pleased with, there's no crimp in the deal, okay? But it encourages them to take the risks they have to take and then move on. All right, I think that's it. Hopefully that's it. Yeah. All right, Ashley.
So let's go back to where John shut me up. I think that slide is the only slide we have discussing revenue sharing. And that's a very important topic. Now, it's difficult to change it once your institution has it. I was unhappy with BU's revenue distribution policies, and I tried to change them for about 5 years, and I retired before I was able to get it done. We had 2 campuses. Each had a different revenue distribution model because the medical campus was both Boston University for the teaching and then Boston Medical Center for the healthcare. And we did the tech transfer for both, and so that policy had to address that. But both policies gave 30% to the inventors. The remaining 70% got distributed between the institution and academic units, and the academic unit share went for research. On the Charles River campus, the institution to support tech transfer got 45%, and on the medical campus, it got 20%. There's a third that John put up. says the inventor gets a third personally, some academic unit gets a third to put into research, and then the tech transfer office gets a third to cover the operating expenses. It seemed to me that that left out one important constituent, and that is the inventor's laboratory. And I can't claim credit for creating this, but this is the distribution policy of Mass General Brigham, which is a combination of two major teaching hospitals, the Massachusetts General Hospital, the oldest public hospital in the US, and the Brigham and Women's Hospital. These are two of the major teaching hospitals of the Harvard Medical School, and they have a research budget of about $1.8 to $2 billion between them. So we take what they do seriously. And their formula is 25% to the inventors personally, 25% to the inventor's lab, 25% to the inventor's department, and then 25% to the institution for the tech transfer office. So if you look at that, that is so beautifully balanced. It's half to the inventor, who created the technology after all, and then half to the institution which supported the inventor and supported tech transfer. So I think it's a very balanced system. It obviously has an advantage of incentivizing the inventor to stay at the institution, because if they leave, the 25% personal share will go with them. You know, it goes to their estate, and I've had inventors die, and the royalties went to the estate. But the 25% to his academic lab, that stays behind. So there is an incentive for them to stay. And I think what Mass General Brigham did for some degree of equity was they said, okay, if you quit, we'll give you 10% of the lab share to go with you, and we'll keep the other 15%.
I'll just add, I do like this one quarter, but it does oftentimes disadvantage like graduate students who are often co-inventors. So it's got its flaws as well. But I'm kind of curious, is everybody here, Tech Transfer Office, do you have revenue sharing? And what is the sharing typically? What's the sharing at your institutions?
Typically in India, it's inventors the highest, not the 31, not 91 by 4.
Yeah, maybe you can just, so IIT Madras, you can say your policy, because CSIR policy is very different. So.
That is where IITM, IP policies are not out yet. They are institutional, so I can't discuss. That's the reason I was discussing. I did a study on this inventor shares of Indian universities, and it was clearly the inventor share would be at a maximum when compared to the institute. Typically, if you take all the private institutes. And in terms of the TTO revenue, I guess that it would be very marginal, very less. And as in the first statement, he was telling that TTOs cannot run just by the revenue generated by the TTO itself. So I am a bit skeptical on any of the Indian institutes, so be it the organizations like the central bodies, are purely run by the TTO fund.
No.
No. So.
Yeah. So the first thing we should be very clear about is that even in the best of institutions around the world, right, TTO earnings are not a substitute for research funding and all the rest of the funding, right? It's even Stanford will be maybe 3%, 5% of the entire kitty, yes. Right? The second thing is whether to cover the cost of the TTO itself or not. Right, that's the next proportion. That also, I think there we have different perspectives here. John comes from has experience with small TTOs. Ashley is from a mid-sized TTO. Dick has been running a larger TTO. So there are different perspectives on whether they can even cover the cost. Okay, of operations. Yes. And if you can't, it's better that the institution pays for it, covers it as a strategic activity, which is a service right? As John mentioned, in the interest of this. So how do you guys see it? I mean, it's a good point to ask.
That is exactly what I was telling, that in Indian context, the amount generated by the TTO is not sufficient to maintain the cost or run the IPO office completely. And because the inventor's share, I mean, it might differ. In all the IITs also, if you take the inventor shares is quite high, like plus 50% even on average I'm selling you. So most of the Indian institute, they prefer the inventor share to be at a higher margin at plus 50. And that's where it becomes very difficult for us to maintain the TTO to run with the same money.
Yeah.
And WIPO's, I mean, I'm a bit curious why WIPO is still sticking to 1/3. I mean, it's in the policies also, the proposed policies, the proportion was 1/3, 1/3. But what I heard, like 1/4, was a bit new for me as of now, that going that 1/4 to inventor's lab and inventor, and 1/4 to the department and 1/4 to the TTO. I guess that makes very normalized.
No, but this is actually specific to Harvard, actually, because
MIT.
no, MIT is different. Actually, MIT is 1/3.
Yeah, and as part of my effort, my 5-year effort to try and change BU's policy, I went to the 2 inventors with the biggest royalty income. One a physician for a drug, and one a material scientist for the key enabling technology behind LED screens, okay? And I said, would you support this change? Which would mean that their personal share went down 5%, but they got a 25% lab share. And both of them said, in a heartbeat.
So I'll just say that when I first started, the TTO received 15% of revenue and had to rely very heavily on the budget. And what we realized was, John may have mentioned it, change of personalities of individuals in terms of how much budget they're going to give us, so you get instability. So we thought, well, this is a problem. 15% is not enough. We were gradually gliding down to crash at 15%. It's just simply not enough to cover expenses and patents. And so 50% is what we gave the inventors. And so I was asked to go out and interview my key peers, relatively large universities in the US, about almost 20 of them. And all of them had evolved independently to kind of come up to that 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 model. And it was across the board, that model. Now, there are some outliers, but the last time I looked, it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, which we liked because we rely upon the budget somewhat, but it gives us some stability and sustainability.
Can I add to this?
Yeah.
Here's my view. If you're arguing about this, you're wasting your time. What you should be doing is expressing the importance of this activity for the long-term future of the institution. So that when you come forward for the budget conversation, it's not about how much money you made, but yes, this is part of the family of things we should be doing, okay? And you need to have prepared yourself for that discussion by pointing out this is a service business, it's not a for-profit activity for the institution. And you get people that will be arguing this forever and ever and ever, and so from time to time you put your foot in the water and explain, yes, that's fine, or whatever, or no, it's not. But the bulk of your time has to be expressing the importance of supporting the activity somehow for the long term.
And I agree with John. You do, that's paramount. But it's a done deal at Cornell and these other universities, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So we don't have to worry about having to continually go and try to explain over and over why they need to continue to fund us. I think stability, financial stability, I believe the tech transfer office ought to get a share of net revenue. Anyway,
Okay.
So all the so in India, if we talk about, so all the universities and institution, I believe they all have different policy framework where they do decide about the revenue generation component. But I got a chance to study the ICR IP policy where what they have given 70:30. So 30% goes to the inventor. And within the 70%, because they have one unit which they call it Agri-Innovate, that is the commercial arm of the ICR, who transfers their technology. So out of which I believe 15 to 20% goes to the Agri-Innovate, and rest of the amount or the percentage is belongs to the headquarter as well as the institution of the ICR, Indian Council of Agriculture Research. So they have a headquarter plus the institution. So they get the major component. TTO gets around 20%. I can call them as a TTO. And inventor gets the 30%. And I have seen a policy of the JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University. And that was actually very, amazed to see. They have kept around 75 to 80% for inventor. That's a high ratio that has been allocated to the inventor, and because of which what happened, we were negotiating with a few companies for one of the inventor technology, and JNU was not very interested because they know the 80% will go to the inventor. So as a university, they will get only 20%, and so all the effort they have to put only for 20%. So that's where,
That's pretty regressive, right?
Yeah.
Because no, that's pretty regressive from JNU's side, because at least they would have got the 20%,
Exactly, but
and they would have kept the professor happy.
Yes. They didn't think about it.
Huh?
They did not think about it. The only thing was 80% the inventor was getting. So that could be one of the reason where we don't see much of the tech transfer from the could be like JNU, but yes, other universities have a fair compensation percentage for the inventor as well as for the institute. But that is completely a new thing where 1/4 is going to the department of the inventor.
Yesterday there was a discussion which I think Richard talked about, where what motivates the inventor was discussed, and you want to briefly mention it, and then Ashley can continue with this.
Sure. What I've said is based upon dealing with hundreds of inventors, and here's my assessment, and that is that if I go out to the inventors I've known over the years and I say, do you want to get rich through this process, I'll get about 20% who will say, absolutely, I want to get rich, and frankly, leave this university and go live in the tropics. The other 20% will say, no, thank you, I don't want the money. I've had people, faculty tell me I will not accept that money. Now, they might change their mind later when they see the dollars on the table, but they will say no. Most of the people are in the middle. The 60% go, well, that's not why I do this. I'm interested in if the money's there, I'll take my share, but I'm not that interested in it. But if I ask a different question, if I say, how many of you want to see your invention invested in, developed, and disseminated for benefit for, yes, you, but institution and the public? 100% say yes. So that's where you just change the whole shift. If we are arguing over what your share is, we are missing the point. That I agree with. Now, but we did ultimately arrive at this, what we thought was the balance that kind of everybody kind of equilibrated at the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3.
Can I request Ashley to continue?
Yeah, and I did a study. I did it with Irene Abrams, who now runs Boston Children's Hospital's Tech Transfer Office. And the data is kind of 20 years old. It was 2006 data. We published the study in 2010. And I've not seen it repeated because it's tough to get people to answer. but I've kind of modeled it using the autumn survey data since periodically, and it doesn't look like it changes. But we asked tech transfer offices, are you profitable? And we define profits three ways. The first is your gross income versus your gross expenses. You know, the cost of running the office, the salaries, and the patent expenses. If the income exceeded the expenses, we said that was profitable, grossly profitable. Only 48% of institutions in 2006 took in more money than they spent. And this, we've been doing it, for 25 years by then, the biggest research, public investment in research in the world. If you then said, well, okay, of the money you get, you give a chunk to the inventors and it goes out of the institution. If the money that's left in the institution exceeds the expenses, then we said that's net profitable. And with that, we then went down to about, I think it was 32% of institutions were net profitable. But then of the money you keep in the institution, some piece of it goes to research somewhere, and you only keep some portion, a third, perhaps less, to support the tech transfer office. And if that portion that you kept for the tech transfer office exceeded the expenses, we said that's self-sustaining. You no longer have to go on your knees to the president once a year for your operating funds. And when we did that, it was only 16% of tech transfer offices in the US were self-sustaining. And I said I kind of modeled it periodically since with the autumn survey and salary data, and I don't think it's changed very much. So, it's been a vigorous discussion, perhaps longer on something that's less important than we'd have thought. But I was asked to address, where in the organization should the tech transfer office report? And I think the answer depends on the operating model that you choose. So what are the operating models for tech transfer? Well, it might be faculty service to support the creative and entrepreneurial aspirations of the faculty and the graduate students. It might be maximizing the revenue you bring in, generating the maximum amount of license income. It might be this European concept of knowledge transfer, where you look at how much of the know-how and expertise within the institution do we transfer to society through licensing, through sponsored research, and through faculty consulting. It might be economic development, maximizing job creation and retention, both regionally and nationally. And then it might be societal benefit, meeting the needs of society that market forces will not meet. You ask your institution, which of these, they'll probably say, well, no, they're all good, do all of them. And as we'll talk about, you can't. Some of them are mutually exclusive, and the institution needs to decide. And you will have the opportunity periodically to shape your institution's thinking on where it is. And you're probably going to find that different people in the institution have different views on what you should be doing. So let's look at the implications of these different operating models. Let's say your model is faculty service. Well, you're probably going to support all the inventions, disclosures received that come in, because you don't want to have to say to the inventor, I'm sorry, your baby is ugly, nobody wants it. Nobody wants to hear that message. And for these scientists, when they think I've got an invention disclosure that I want to disclose and start to work with, it becomes their baby. And they don't want to hear it's ugly. You'll have high patent costs because you'll file on everything. You'll need to do extensive marketing of all these inventions that you've got in the portfolio. So you'll have high personnel costs to be able to do all that marketing. And you certainly don't seek to maximize the revenues from every invention, and so you'll have lower income. Profitability of the tech transfer office won't be a priority. And you'll foster collaborative relationships with industry to access some of the unique industrial capabilities that this will allow your professor to access, instrumentation that we can't afford, to make large quantities of the material for the professor to experiment with. And it'll also help identify new research opportunities. And the key metric, are you succeeding, will be the satisfaction of your faculty as determined by some sort of periodically administered survey. So that's one model. And hopefully this will help with faculty recruitment. If when they come to visit, all the other faculty say, yeah, and they do a great job with tech transfer. Let's look at the next model, revenue maximization. So you'll be very selective in the inventions you pursue. You'll try to pick winners. You'll reject or give back to inventors the inventions that you think have got low income generating potential. Obviously, you'll do extensive marketing, and your objective will be to get multiple bidders for each technology, because that's what strengthens your position in a negotiation. If you really can say, nope, I can't accept that, unless you'll give on this point, I'm walking away. If you've only got one candidate, you can't make that threat credibly. Because if they say, okay, I'm sorry, I'm not moving, and you stomp out, and you have to call up 2 days later and say, okay, well, maybe we can accept it, your credibility has gone. Here's a great quote. You've heard quotes from Lisa Nelson before at MIT. She once said famously, a hot academic technology is one that 2 companies are interested in. Okay? Another study I did with a colleague in Japan. Academic institutions, the best ones, the mature ones, only license a quarter of the invention disclosures they get. We file patents on about half, and we only license a half of the patents that we've got, a quarter overall. You'll probably have a bonus plan for your tech transfer officers based on the income they can generate, the current income and the future revenue terms of the licenses. And the key metric of the office will be profitability. If your model is knowledge transfer, then licensing is not the sole or the primary focus. Sponsored research will be a big focus. In the US, to this day, the industrially sponsored research to US universities is double the royalty income we generate, even today. And you go back to the early days, it was 10 to 15 times higher. And consulting. Now, in the US, the Tech Transfer Office has nothing to do with consulting. It's a faculty activity. We'll provide guidance and advice if they want to ask for it. At Dana-Farber, where I was, we got to review the consulting agreement. They could blank out how much money they were getting, but we wanted to make sure they weren't giving away any institutional IP. In Europe, this is very different. In the UK, the tech transfer offices do the consulting agreements with the professors. They negotiate them, they maintain insurance policies, and they get typically 10% of the consulting revenues, and the professors seem to think that's a very good deal, and they tend to be happy with it. And there are organizational issues in knowledge transfer. And if you're going to do it this way, easy access, this licensing model created by Kevin Cullen at the University of Glasgow, where he took the philosophy that, look, only 10% of our IP has any value, and we'll identify that and do normal licenses. And the other 90%, we will give fully paid up free licenses to startups that are locally based to generate economic activity. I'm not sure how popular easy access IP has been. It may or may not have worked for the university. I mean, Kevin had data that, yeah, we gave up royalty income, but look at all the sponsored research income we got. I will tell you, most directors who've adopted that model have found themselves at a new university in very short order. It doesn't seem to be good for the director because the university says, well, if you're giving it all away, we don't need you high-priced people. So, go have fun somewhere else. So you give most IP away to startups. So it promotes economic development, and hopefully you get a return from consulting and collaborative research. A financial credit for the bigger revenue base, maybe. Larger staff to handle agreements and more complex relationships. And the key metric will be how many technologies do you have in development. And obviously you want to see a big public benefit coming out of this. If your model's economic development, jobs, jobs, jobs. It's the economy, stupid, as Bill Clinton famously said. There'll be much less pressure for profitability, and you'll be looking to get some state and local funding because you are doing it to develop the local economy. So you'll have incubators, proof of concept funding, research parks, perhaps getting local government support. Express licensing, definitely a viable strategy. Express licenses are different from easy access. They have defined terms which are generous to the licensee. They're less than a free market rate, but the agreement is non-negotiable. The only thing you negotiate are the due diligence provisions which are appropriate to that technology. If they want to change one other word, you go back to a new negotiation from scratch. And the dynamic is, you have the general counsel of the company saying, no, we can't accept that. And the CEO says, it's a hell of a deal, we're going to do it, okay? And so express licensing, you see a lot of this in US universities. Additional activities, creating funds to invest in the startups, and the key metric will be jobs created, companies created, and the external investment raised. Societal impact, you focus on technologies that can help most people. Income and profitability is not a concern. And faculties outside of science, technology, and engineering and math can have a major impact on this. And I think John's going to talk about social licensing later. Additional activities, you focus on international opportunities in less developed countries. Philanthropic funding potential to help develop some of these opportunities. And the key metrics will be people helped. Do you know what I think is the university that has helped most people in the world? Mentioned them earlier. The University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. They invented the internet as we use it to this day. They invented the web browser. They invented Eudora, which was the first email program that could attach a document. And think how we rely on that today. And they managed to make a total of about $10 million from the whole thing, which is trivial for technologies that had such an impact. But boy, did they help people. So, there are organizational implications. Where should the OTT report within the university? Well, I think it depends on the model and the mission that you choose. If it's faculty service, obviously you're going to be reporting to the Vice President for Research because he has concern for faculty. If it's revenue maximization, then it's going to be the VP for Finance who's got to want to oversee the operation and make sure that you're generating as much as you can. Knowledge transfer, which is licensing and sponsored research, we're back to the VP for Research. If it's economic development, then most public universities in the US have a position which is VP for Economic Development. You'll be reporting in there. If societal impact, the VP for Development. Because if you're doing all this good stuff, it allows the Development Office to reach out to philanthropists rich donors, rich alumni, and say, look at all the good we're doing, give money to the university. So, that's the conversation I was asked to have. Maybe some additional slides for John, but I think we are well into the lunch break. I never come between people and their lunch.
Yeah, thank you. I have a very small question. Do all these model exist in coexist in a single TTO?
Well, you'll probably find they exist within the same institution.
Yeah, they're blends.
The VP for finance absolutely thinks you should maximize revenue, whereas the VP for research thinks you absolutely should be doing everything you can to keep the faculty happy. And I think that, yes, the institution says we want to maximize the impact of what we do. And that will be true, perhaps, for 364 days of the year. And then there's budget day. And on budget day, you hear a different opinion.
So just another quick question.
Yep, microphone.
About the triage and selection. So can you just detail about that, the triage you were discussing, like selecting the technology, then valuing it. The third part I wanted to know more about.
So triage is about looking at the inventions as they come in and deciding whether they're worth investing your time, effort, and money in. And you really have to answer two questions. Are we likely to get a patent on this? And second, if we do get a patent on it, will anybody care and want it? And triage systems really set out to try and answer these questions. And you'll find most sophisticated tech transfer offices have a system. I call mine the first look technology assessment. Dick calls his the 10-point technology scoring template, if I got that right. John, I don't know what you called your system.
The back of the envelope method.
Okay? It's important because, as I said, in the US, half the time we say no. Your baby's ugly, nobody's going to want it. And it's important to have support for that. And so you do this analysis, and I think, I know in the 5-day course I'm going through it, I'm not sure if I am here. You do the analysis, and particularly if you have some committee that has to approve new patent cases, before it goes to that committee with your recommendation, yes or no, you want to show it to the professor, the inventor, the scientist, and say, look, here's what my research has found. And you'll see my research is pointing to no, we don't want to move forward. Have I missed something? Did I miss what the technology can do? Did I miss the opportunity you see for it? And if they can't disagree with you, these are rational scientists. They accept data. At that point, they have to agree with your decision not to move forward. And I think the proof of whether this is successful is if they come back a year or 2 years later with the same invention, but now much more data about it, such that you come to a different conclusion, or they come back 3 to 4 years later with a new invention. And they say, look, I know the last one wasn't worth taking forward, but I learned from that, and now I've got this new one. And I think this will meet your criteria. Will you look at it for me, please? I think those are the two criteria for success of your triage system. Dick, you want to say that?
Well, I would.
I'm sorry to interrupt all of you. I want to request all the 3 experts. There's a photograph of all the speakers, so everyone is waiting for you outside.
Okay.
They can wait. Let's continue.
I will just say this, and that is, I've seen a lot of data, we have a lot of data, which is, as Ashley said, 50%, no matter how hard you try, you'll file on 50% or you'll pursue 50%, and you'll be able to license about half of that, about 25%. So the fact of life is that you're not going to be able to license the majority. So if you do not do some selection, that means your staff is burdened with so many cases that will never be at all successful in finding a partner. So it's just such a burden. It's just such a burden that we couldn't afford.
And you're making the professor put in effort. And ultimately, if it fails, they're going to be more disappointed than, yeah.
I was lucky. The nature of our institution was such that I was able to sit down from time to time with the president of the university. I said to him, what's important? He said, after we get the nickels and dimes to keep the air conditioning going, it's the reputation of the institution. So in the triage, that was a key issue. Will this lead to a possible story that the president can use to justify the existence of the university with the state government, with the national government, with the parents? Okay? And we found that we were able to do that. So we had, there were mechanical means, as the guys have described, of how to select down. And we had to be very careful about saying no from time to time. But we then positively selected those that the founder was particularly passionate. The story was particularly important in the long term. And that became important for us because I could justify the expense of, say, patents or a trade show or something else, depending upon the value and the contribution of the reputation at the institute.
So you mentioned that you two have different formats for the triage assessment, and you have a backup envelope method to do so. But the primary components of those assessments, can you just briefly tell about that, in case we are pressed with time?
Oh, sure. All right, well, let me start off. The study was done at Columbia University. They studied 30 years of licensing to try and figure out how to detect the winner. And the answer was, there was no way to do that. You cannot predict. So, the huge upside based on the numbers just weren't good. So you then back down and look at who are the people that will work with you when there are problems and help move it forward. Where are there very interesting stories to be told that will build on the reputation and other things? And then mechanically, at the end of the day, it came down to the fact of, is this someone that you can work with over a period of 5 to 7 years? Your personalities clash or click?
Okay, let's go get our picture taken.
Yeah, we better do that. But we can talk more
Sure, I'll
about
let
the
you.
criteria.
And I assume we're going to go to lunch afterwards and then
Hopefully.
come back.